Gittin değil miydik benim karımı?
Whoever mic is on, kindly turn it off.
Everyone is requested to turn off their mics.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Turn off your mic. Parveen Gautam. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the grand finale of our winter internship. Before we begin the final phase of your training, I want to reflect on the platform that has brought us all together. Nyavani Foundation is a Section 8 non-profit organization under the Companies Act 2013, committed to the legal education, access to justice, and legal empowerment across India. We bridge the gap between academic learning and real-world legal practice by providing free, high-quality, practice-oriented opportunities for law students and young legal professionals. With 2,500 plus interns, a presence in 100 plus cities, and flagship initiatives like structured internship, legal mentorship, legal aid programs, right awareness campaigns, and the national moot court competition of Nyayavani Foundation, we continue to build a strong national legal ecosystem dedicated to ethical advocacy and justice. So, the Nyayavani Foundation is presenting today's session in collaboration with Legalis IP, an independent research platform affiliated with the Intellectual Foundation, a registered NGO. Its mission is to advance scholarship at the intersection of intellectual property, technology, law, and public policy. We recognize Legalis IP's significant work in various fields, and therefore we propose a joint webinar today on judgment writing principles.
Thank you, Tisa. Good evening, everyone. I am Chetan Abhiraj, and I'm the intensive head at Legalis IP. I'm glad to inform you all that we are joined with our guest speaker, Ms. Shreya Singh. Sneha Singh is an accomplished legal professional and academician with deep-seated expertise in judicial procedures and criminal justice. An alumna of Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, she holds a Masters of Laws in Criminal Law and Criminal Justice from Jagran Lake City University. Additionally, she holds a diploma in cyber law and crime investigation from the Indian Institute of Cyber Law. Ms. Singh has demonstrated exceptional legal proficiency by qualifying for the judiciary mains exams in both Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. Her academic background includes a tenure as an assistant professor at Saint Kamlaben Gambhir Chand Saha Law School. Currently, she serves as an educator at Legal Edge, where she mentors aspirants and practices as a legal consultant. Furthermore, she leads the editorial vision of Legalist IP as its editor-in-chief. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to the session. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Chetan. So much of acknowledgement. Hello, everyone. So, today I will be guiding you to write a judgment, especially a criminal judgment. So, before we start with this session, I would like to take your attention like what we are going to discuss, what will be the overview of today's seminar. And today we are going to discuss about judgment. What is basically a judgment is how a criminal judgment needs to be in a for to discuss the format of a judgment, what is marshalling of evidence, what is appreciation, what are the concepts which you need to write, which you need to understand before writing a judgment. This all we are going to cover in today's session. Chetan, can you please change the slide? Okay, thank you. So before we start, I would request all of you, please be patient, listen to the structure, understand the concept. We will give you your doubts. We will give you time to ask your questions, whatever the queries you are going to have. We'll discuss them, all of them. Just be patient and listen the concepts. Okay. So first of all, like if we talk about like what we are going to discuss session. So we are going to understand what judgment is. Then judgment needs to be formed on what basis, what are the concepts that are required for a judgment. Okay, and we are going to study the structure of adjudication as well, right? So next slide, please. See, role of the trial court. Like first, we are going to start with a trial. What does a trial means? Trial means, in simple language, I can say that trial means a formal procedure before a court where court determines, where court adjudicate upon the matters. Right? This is a very basic understanding that there are two parties, one is prosecution, other one is defendant, and they both appear in front of the court, and court decides the matter based on the testimony of the witnesses, and also upon the discussions present, upon the arguments presented by both prosecution and defendant, the judge reach out a conclusion in a trial process, right? So trial means a court where the proceedings are going on to decide or to settle dispute. Trial court plays a important role while determining to the conclusion. So next, we are here to understand that what is judgment and how we are going to write a criminal judgment, right? Criminal judgment writing we are going to discuss. First of all, I would like to tell you that writing is an art, right? Judgment writing is the subject where you can, if you want to pursue judiciary in future, and this is one of the very important aspect where you have to be very, I would say, very important. It is very important for you. And this is, am I not audible properly to everyone?
You are audible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you are audible. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yes, where we were discussing about judgment writing. That judgment writing is very important. अगर आपको फ्यूचर में अपना जुडिशरी में करियर बनाना है, so like you are going to appear for the judiciary exam where you will see कि separate exam has been conducted. Separate exams are there for judgment writing, and it is the subject which gives you a special advantage in the selection process. Like, so first of all, we are going to discuss what a judgment means. See, a very simple answer of this, what a judgment means. Judgment means a reason statement explaining the grounds of court decision. When we have study about judgment, judgment has two parts. One is obiter dicta and second one is ratio decidendi. Obiter dicta means on what grounds or what opinion a judge has given that particular judgment. The opinion of the judges is known as obiter dicta, and ratio decidendi is the final verdict of a case. Okay, so judgment is basically a statement which is explaining the grounds of court's decision, that on what points that particular court has reached to this conclusion. Judgment includes facts of the case, legal analysis, legal provisions are there, and on what provisions the conclusion is there. It all has been provided. This all has been provided in a judgment. All right. Then moving forward, what is judgment writing is? So when we are talking about judgment writing, right? Judgment writing is basically it is a way of solving any given problem in a formal manner, right? It's just a normal process of solving or adjudicating a problem in a formal manner. And now, why judgment writing is important? Because it is a practical approach, right? It is a practical approach for reaching out on a conclusion. And also, Supreme Court in various cases has elaborated the guidelines for writing a judgment. One of the very important or prominent judgment, which is Joint Commissioner of Income Tax Surat versus Saheli Industries Limited. In that, Supreme Court has clearly expressed certain guidelines for writing a judgment to lower courts. Okay, so when we are talking about that, what will be there in particular judgment? So first thing, framing points of determination. Second is marshalling evidence, appreciation of evidence. What are these points? Marshalling of evidence means sequencing of the evidence, right? You have to put every evidence in a sequence. And then appreciation, we are going to discuss these concepts in very detail. First of all, I would like to tell you all that before starting with a criminal judgment writing, you need to make a note of certain points, right? The first is that you have to understand the question problem very properly, very thoroughly. Okay? Always try to underline the facts. Whenever the problem is coming in front of you, you are reading that problem. The number one thing you have to do is, if there is any important point, make a underline to it, so that will be easy for you to understand the question properly, right? And always keep in mind that nothing should be written in judgment which is not related to the fact. The judgment needs always to be related to a fact. Okay, and I would likely to take your attention, like all, I expect that you all have studied BSA, that is Bharatiya Sakshi Adhiniyam, where uh, Divya, you have asked the name of the case mentioned. Yeah, I'll provide that. Wait for some time, I'll provide that. Yeah, so I was telling that ki in BSA, that is Bharatiya Sakshi Adhiniyam, you all have studied about the relevant facts. From section 5 to 55, we study about the relevant fact, what comes under the relevant facts and what does not comes under the relevant fact. So our judgment should always be based on the relevant facts, right? When we talk about the provisions that are given in BSA, there it has been clearly stated that a judge can take the admissibility of any evidence, whatever he likes. He can ask the prosecution or defendant as well, but he will always give the decision on the facts that are relevant. Relevant facts, so they need to be proved also. Relevant facts must need to be proved also. Okay. Then the criminal judgment writing has a own format, and a criminal judgment writing need always to have a flow and perfect sequence. If you're writing a criminal judgment writing, judgment for any particular exam, it will be, you will not be given marks if you have not mentioned the proper sequence of a judgment, right? So today we are going to study that also, that what is a perfect sequence or what is a proper format of writing a criminal judgment. Then appropriate care should be taken not to load with too many cases or legal point. A judgment should be in a precise manner. Also, it is very important. Also, it is very important that all the points needs to be clearly stated, but it should be limited also. It should not be like that your judgment is a very long, or it should not be in a very lengthy manner, right? It should be very precise, and appropriate cases or legal points have been mentioned there. Language should be clear and precise, that it should be understandable by everyone. Okay. Now coming to marshalling of evidence, what does the marshalling means, right? Marshalling evidence means means arranging the evidence of the parties, right? Sequencing of the evidence. Marshalling of evidence means the sequencing of the evidence which leads to the proper appreciation. Once we are done with marshalling, then we are moving forward towards the appreciation. Marshalling means the sequencing. If you do the sequencing of the evidences that are presented before a court, then it will be very helpful to do the appreciation. Okay. And a good marshalling of evidence is always a precondition to good appreciation. So first of all, you have to, what will be your first step, that you are going to framing points for determination. That means you are going to study the facts about the problem. Then you are going to understand which facts are very important, where you have to focus. And now you have to do the marshalling. Marshalling means the sequencing of the evidences. All right. Moving forward, appreciation of evidence. See, when we are talking about appreciation, okay, so before that, do you all know the meanings of evidence? If you have studied Sakshi Adhiniyam, under that act, section 2, under section 2, the definition of evidence has been provided. That definition includes all the evidences, whether oral or documentary, including electronic record. Okay, so evidence is this. And also BSA tells us about, section 3 tells us about that parties can give the evidence to prove only the fact in issue or relevant fact. Clear? Section 3 is also known as the backbone of BSA, because it tells us that a parties can give evidence only on the facts which are in issue and only on the relevant facts. Okay. And also here section 141 becomes very important. Why? Because section 141 of BSA tells us that wherever any party wants to produce any evidence to prove any fact, the court may ask first the party to prove how the fact is relevant as per the Evidence Act. This is called appreciation of evidence. Appreciation means you have to wait. You have to waiting the reliability and the trustworthiness of the evidence adduced in a case. Okay, whatever the evidences are introduced by the parties, the court will decide that how much um, weightage is given to this particular evidences. Like for example, if you have studied confession, confessions are two types. One is judicial confession, second is extrajudicial confession, right? Judicial confession is more reliable, its credibility is more in comparison of extrajudicial confession. Why? Because judicial confession is always in the presence of the magistrate, whereas extrajudicial confessions are those confessions which are made not in the presence of the magistrate. So it's always stated that when we study BSA, we have studied this, that judicial confessions have more weightage than extrajudicial confessions, right? So appreciation is this stage only. Appreciation means you are weighting the reliability and trustworthiness of the evidence. So again, three stages. First will be framing points for determination, understanding the facts, then marshalling means the sequencing of the evidences, and third will be appreciation, which means that which evidence should be given more weightage, which evidence is more reliable or trustworthy. Okay. Remember one more point, that while appreciating the evidence, first thing you have to do is to establish the relevancy of the fact under BSA, right? And this court asks the parties only, that whether your evidence is relevant to the fact and issue or not, it is admissible as per BSA or not. We are going to study the sections of BSA only, because since Indian Evidence Act has been now repealed with BSA, and now BSA is in force, so we are going to study the facts, the provisions of BSA only, right? So remember one thing, that you have to also understand this very clearly, that the fact, which is the evidence which is coming in front of a court, or in front of a court, you have to establish the relevancy of that particular fact under BSA, whether it is relevant or irrelevant. Okay. Then another point is that fact which are proved by the party, with the help of trustworthy evidence, only those facts are taken into consideration by the court to decide the case. Like I said before also, that under BSA it is clearly given, a court can ask question to the parties, any question to the parties, they can admissible any, they can take the any evidence, right? They can cognizance over any evidence, but when they will give the evidence, when they will give the judgment, so it is very important that judgment should always be on the relevant fact. Okay. Then while talking about appreciation of evidence, first of all, you have to establish a relevancy of evidence. Only the relevant evidence which proved in the court, they are going to admissible as the part of the evidence. Then the appreciation is done. Clear? Next point, we are talking about application of statutory ingredients. Statutory ingredients means, for example, you're writing a judgment on section 303 of BNS, which is theft, right? So you have to mention that particular section, that theft is defined under this section, and according to this section, this person is liable for 3 years of imprisonment or fine or both, right? So you have to mention statutory ingredients. If you have given a judgment on the basis precedent which is established by Supreme Court, so you have to mention that case name as well, and then the section, these called the application of statutory ingredients. You cannot give the statement, you cannot give a statement or judgment based on a fact, right? It should have a legal reasoning, it should have a legal validation. So application of statutory provisions are very important. Next is the determination of guilt or innocence. Now you have to decide that on the person on which the charge has been framed, that person is going to be convicted or the acquittal is going to be go happen. Okay. Acquittal means the innocence and conviction means the guilt. Okay. Then pro operative order and sentence. We are going to discuss this point later when we are going to apply the steps. Clear? All of you, all of you, if you are having any doubt, you can ask now. Till now, I'm giving you minute. If you have any doubt so far, you can ask.
Ma'am,
If no doubts are there, then we can move forward. Yes.
am I audible? Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Are we supposed to example the case law before we mention the section, or after showing the relevance of the given facts to the section?
I'm sorry, Divya, your voice got breaked in between. Could you please repeat your question?
When we show the fact is relevant to any case law, are we supposed to mention the section first or the case law first?
No, you're not supposed to mention the section. It's just that when we study the relevancy of facts under BSA, so we know which facts are relevant. Let's take, for example, rest essay, plea of alibi. These are the relevant facts. So you have to just mention that this fact is relevant on this particular segment. If you're not mentioning section, it is not necessary. Section mention is not necessary. However, when you're giving a judgment, so suppose you're giving a judgment on the section number, let's take mischief. So you have to mention the section of mischief. you don't have to mention the section of BSS. Evidence के section mention करना is not necessary. Clear?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. So Piyush has asked one doubt that you mentioned that judgment should be written in a concise manner. However, when we examine actual court judgments, they are often quite lengthy and detailed. Okay, so this is Piyush. You study precedents which have a question over a law, right? And if you see the judgments which are regular, which does not have any point of contention over on the question of law, so these judgments are usually in a precise manner. I'm not saying that a judgment should be 1 page or 2 page, right? I'm saying it should be in concise manner. Means when we are going to study, अभी हम आगे जब हम judgment के बारे में format में पढ़ेंगे, so paragraph में we have to write the judgments in a paragraph format, right? So it should not be that lengthy that you are including unnecessary facts. It should be concise, or it should be restricted to reasoning which have a legal validation. That is what I mean to say when I was explaining this particular thing. A judgment may make see to 50 or 60 pages also. Okay, so Indra is also having a doubt. Indra, just wait for 10 or 15 minutes more when we are going to study the judgment in a judgment format. Then I'm going to answer this question. Like, we have to summarize the evidence or prosecution witness or not. Okay. So, next slide, please. So now we are going to study a problem also. So before studying the problem, we need to understand the what is theft. First of all, theft. If I would say theft in Hindi means a chori, right? Chori means what? You are taking someone's property without that person's consent. You're moving that property is called theft, right? So theft has been defined under section 302 of BNS, and section 303 subsection 2 provides the punishment for the theft, right? So theft has four essential elements, which means first is dishonest intention. Like, dishonest intention, when we study essentials of a crime, so mens rea is very important. Mens rea means the guilty mind, right? And in guilty mind, we talk about guilty minds, we mean intention. An act, if you're pursuing a act which is wrong or which is contrary to a law, that will first of all initiate in your mind, right? So an act does not make a person guilty unless his mind be also guilty. The legal maxim behind this principle is actus non facietum nisi mens rea. I must you all have studied this under BNS. So dishonest intention is one of the very important ingredient of the theft. The first essential element of theft is dishonest intention. Second is movable property. See, very simple. You cannot move a immovable property. Immovable properties which cannot be moved. क्या लैंड मूव किया जा सकता है? नो. द आंसर इज नो. क्या बिल्डिंग मूव की जा सकती है? द आंसर इज नो. थेफ्ट हमेशा किस प्रॉपर्टी को होगा? विच इज मूवेबल इन नेचर, विच कैन बी मूव. So second important essential of theft is a movable property. You can move a property which is movable. It's very obvious, right? Third is removal of the possession. For example, see, A went to B's house, right, for a party, and he saw that B is having a very beautiful box in which he used to put his jewelries. So B moved that box from the eyes of the A, uh, because in order to commit a theft in next day. See, next day I'll come, and in meanwhile I'll take that box. So he removed that box from the possession of B. It is not necessary that he is taking that box away or very far from that particular person. If you have removed from that specific possessions of any person, it called removal of the possession, right? And absence of consent means without the consent of that particular person. In this example, A has moved that box without the consent of B. So the four important essentials of theft is: first is dishonest intention, second movable property, third removal of the possession, fourth without the consent of that persons. If all these four essentials got fulfilled, then the offense of theft is committed. If any one of these is absent, then it will not amount to theft. And remember, dishonest intention is very important. Let's take, for example, I went to my friend house and I saw that his watch is just laying on the floor, and I thought that it could be taken by anyone. So I just took that watch without the consent of my friend, and I'm having an intention that I will return to him whenever I'll find him, right? So here I'm not having any dishonest intention, so this will not amount to theft. Having a dishonest intention is very important in theft. So the concept of theft, I hope the concept of theft has been cleared to everyone. Okay, next we are going to talk about, after this we are going to talk about burden and standard of proof. Okay, so these are the concepts which you study under BSA. In BSA we study burden of proof. Burden of proof, on whom the proof lies, burden of proof lies, right? So if we talk about, very essentially, it always lies on the prosecution. That prosecution is going to prove the doubt, but the prosecution needs to prove a fact without reasonable doubt. Suppose B has been accused of murder and A is in the prosecution. Now A has to prove his doubt beyond reasonable doubts. He has to prove his guilt. If A is proving B's guilt, then he has to prove it beyond reasonable doubts. A single percent of probability should not be there. This is very important in criminal section. Whereas when we talk about civil section or civil law, so it is basically preponderance of probability. It doesn't, civil law never have that concept of beyond reasonable doubt. Always there in criminal, because it's very obvious that हिंदी में भी एक कहावत है कि अगर 100 गुनेगार छूट जाए बट एक बेगुनाह को सजा नहीं होनी चाहिए, राइट? आई अज्यूम दैट you all of you have heard this sentence, right? So the beyond reasonable doubt concept is based on this thing only, that if you're proving a guilt of any person, it should be beyond reasonable doubt. Whereas in civil law, when we are talking about civil law, it depends on preponderance of probability. The person who is having the more weightage or more evidence, the judgment goes in the favor of that person. Okay. Next is hostile witness. Next slide. Hostile witness. Hostile witness. When we're talking about hostile witness means a person, suppose he have given a statement and after that he has withdrawn or contradicted himself from those statements. Okay, generally the evidence producing a witness has certain stages. First is examination, second is cross examination, then third is re examination. So suppose for example A came for the chief examination. He have stated certain facts, but in cross examination, he is contradicting his own points. He's saying the statements which does not match with the chief examination. So this is called a witness is now the witness is hostile. So when we are talking about the hostile witness, his testimony is his testimony is not that credible. We cannot rely on the evidences of hostile witness. Hostile witness always needs to be corroborated, and hostile witness testimonies do not have weightage in the judgment. It always affects. So court is not going to accept the testimony of a hostile witness. Okay, so remember these points. You have to make a note of all these points, because while determining a judgment, while writing a judgment, these all are the points which are very important, and you have to keep all these points in your mind. It's clear? Next is marshalling of evidences. Next slide is marshalling of evidences. See, we have discussed this point, right? When we are talking about marshalling of evidence, I already told you that it is the sequencing of evidence, right? When we are talking about evidence is broadly divided into two. two categories. One is oral evidences, second is documentary evidences. In VSA, it very clearly stated that documentary evidences are having the more weightage over oral evidences, right? So when a person or when a judge is writing a judgment, he should always keep in mind that to which weightage, which judgment should be kept in mind before all these things, right? So while doing the marshalling, it is very important that a person needs to examine all the evidences, whether oral or documentary, as produced by the parties. Right. Second, that after the arrangement of all the connected evidences together, under the analysis of an issue or the point of determination. So you have to connect all the evidences together, that how this evidences should form a sequence, so you can do the appreciation as well, that which fact is relevant or which fact is not relevant. Clear? Like let's take for example, okay, we'll discuss this later. Next, second, also one point is there that complete testimony of any witness is not to be stated under one issue. Also, if you can pick any one point, if suppose A has stated 10 points, so you can pick that one point as well. If this one point is particularly relevant, you can include in that marshalling of the evidences. Okay. Then next is appreciation of evidence. We have discussed this also. When we are talking about appreciation means टेस्टिमनी की क्रेडिबिलिटी को चेक करना है, उसकी ट्रस्टवर्थीनेस को चेक करना है, whether that particular fact is relevant or not. Okay. So, and also corroboration needs to be done. Like for example, earlier I gave you the example of confession, right? Judicial confessions are more reliable than extrajudicial confession. If any extrajudicial confession is there, then it needs to be corroborated, right? Corroboration is very important. So here you have to, in while doing the appreciation, it is very important that the relevant fact which has been introduced by the parties is relevant to the fact or not, number one, and that relevant fact is proved following the evidences or not. This is very much important. Okay. And a judge will always write the judgment on the basis of relevant facts which are proved. Okay. So marshalling and appreciation, we have discussed this point here. Okay. So next is C. Now, judicial reasoning. Judicial reasoning, it simply means how a judicial officer applies his mind. So first of all, what happened, like factual reconstruction, what are the facts, which we obviously, I told all these points in the beginning only. Like first, you have to understand that the question thoroughly. What is the problem? What are the facts? To understanding the reading of that particular problem or fact is very important. Understanding the question thoroughly is very important. Always try to underline the important facts while you're reading a problem. If you're seeing that this particular point is relevant, you will underline that point. Okay. Then second will be who's credible, which means who's credible means the reliability. Like for example, judicial confessions are more reliable. Dying declaration in the front of the magistrate will be more reliable, right? So, which is credible? Who is more trustworthy? This is very important. Then, what is to be proved? Evidence value. If the evidence is considered as a weak evidence, then it needs to be corroborated. At the same time, credibility has to be checked of that particular evidence. It is sufficient to prove that particular fact or not. Last, what law applies, right? Suppose we are writing a judgment on the concept of theft, then we have to understand that the section 303 of BNS, right? What is theft? All the essential of theft has been fulfilled under this particular situation or not, right? And then if doubt is present, see, the guilt of the accused, if you're going to convict a person, then his guilt must be proven beyond reasonable doubt. This is very important. the fundamental principle of a criminal law justice system, right? This is a very fundamental principle. And if there is any benefit in that, so benefit of doubt should always be given to the accused. Okay. So here we are done with conceptual foundations. What are the concepts which are needed? Next slide, please. So here we are done with the conceptual foundations, which means we have understood every concept which are required for writing a criminal judgment. Now we are going to apply these concepts on an exercise. Okay, clear hai sabko? Till now everything is clear or not? Okay, I suppose everything is clear. So we will moving forward with case application exercise. Okay. So when we are talking about case application now, the concepts जो अभी हमने discuss किया, we have discussed judgment, judgment writing, marshalling, appreciation. We have discussed a concept which is basically a theft. Before writing criminal judgment, you have to study the three criminal laws, which is BNS, BNSS, and BSA. Understanding these three laws are very important for writing a judgment. Okay. So now what you have to do is, there is a problem. You're acting as a trial magistrate. Okay. And your task is to evaluate evidence, determine the credibility, which means appreciation of the evidence. Then you have to apply the law and decide whether the particular person is accused or acquitted or convicted. Okay. A judge does not argue, a judge determines the truth, right? So based on the evidences, a judge sees that the person has committed a particular offense or not. So this is, being a judicial officer, being a person who's writing a judgment, it is very important that you should not have any sympathy towards any person. You just have to evaluate evidence and determine the credibility of the person based on the facts and evidences. And if you, Shashi Tharoor once said that it is not the, when a trial is going in the court, it is not the trial of the parties. It is the trial of the judge actually, because both the parties already know their truth, right? It is the judge who is going to have that particular trial. It is the judge who needs to decide that which party is correct or which party is not correct. And किसके फेवर में जजमेंट देना है. So it is a judge which is who is always on trial, not the parties. Okay. Next. So case is talking about that a diamond ring is missing from the residence. Accused is the domestic helper employed at the premises. And the core issue is that recovery of a ring or dishonest intention. Core issue means that the fact and issue is that whether the ring has been finded out by the person or not, or whether the dishonest intention was present or not. Okay. समझ में आया सबको case facts? Everyone are aware about with the case facts? All of you have understood the problem, that what are the problem is there in front of you, that a diamond ring is missing from a residence and the accusation is on a domestic helper. Okay. And the main issue is there is recovery of the ring and whether the dishonest intention was present or not. So prosecution के points take the next is prosecution case. What are the points that has been provided by the prosecution? Number one, ring. The report has been made, the complaint has been made before the court that a ring is missing and it got recovered from the accused person's bag. Then a recovery memo is prepared. Recovery memo is means कि whenever a thing got stolen from a person, then police officers usually prepared a memo that this particular property belongs to a person and this needs to be written to that particular person. And property identified by the owner. The owner identified the property that yes, this ring belongs to me, and the owner of this particular ring which got found in accused person's bag. All right. Then from the fact we can interpret evidence. But then, question is what is with the particular person accused? Ring किसके accused के पास में, right? However, when about intention, what it is when you prove the intention of the person, right? It is very, we cannot read up his mind that what is going in his mind, right? So whenever you have to prove a decision, it is very important you have to prove it by a act. For example, the ring got found in that person's back. It is person is having the now I'm audible to
Actually, ma'am, your voice is still cracking. It's not clear to us. And in the before your audio was, along with your video, was not good. It was not up to the level. Can you please try and speak so that we can know whether it's good or not?
Okay, so now I'm audible to everyone. To everyone.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible to me, and let's get confirmation from everyone.
Okay.
Ma'am, you are.
Yes, ma'am, you
Okay. So, what we were discussing about the intention, right? You cannot prove a person's intention that what goes inside a head of a person. It is very important to prove the act also. When we study the principle actus non facitrium nisi mens citria, it clearly stated that an act always coupled with the intention as well, right? So, in order to proving a person's intention, you must to prove a act which is connected to that intention as well, right? Now, in this situation, the ring was in the bag of that person, accused person. So it is clearly present, it is visible that that particular person is having the intention. Okay, so this was the prosecution. Now, what is defense said in this case? That false implication alleged, salary disputes were there. So it suggests motive that it is the basically a planning to held this particular person accused or of that taking about that ring. So these are the facts which is presented by the defendant. That false implications has been made on his. He was having a salary dispute with his master. Also, planting of evidence was there. So defense is trying to create a reasonable doubt. Right. Defense is also having a valid point. There were already disputes. Some disputes were going on, but these all are the things which are very difficult to prove with the suggested facts, right? Now, witness testimony. Next, we are going to move forward with the witness testimony. Witness testimony means what are the statements given by the witnesses, what are the evidence that has been produced by the persons. So, PW1 means the complainant confirms missing rings and identification. When ring got missing, the complainant files a complaint against the particular servant, and uh, he filed a complaint that my ring got missed. Okay, then investigation officer is there. He has stated that while doing the investigation, he found the ring from the bag of that accused person, from the bag of that domestic helper. Caesar witness turns hostile, denies witnessing recovery. The person who saw that ring was found from that particular person's bag, he changed his testimony. Earlier he said yes, it was found, and then he told that no, it was not found. Now, what we have to determine, the points of determination will be next slide. The points of determination will be that was the accused found in conscious possession of the stolen property, and second question will be that does such possession established theft under section 303. So now we have to determine whether these questions are going to, we are getting the answer of these questions from the facts provided in the situation or not. Okay, so for section 303, we have to see that the four elements which we studied under section 303 are getting fulfilled or not. If they are getting fulfilled, then it is to be stated that the domestic helper is guilty. Okay, the first question is, was the accused found in conscious possession of the stolen property or not? So, yes, the possession was there. The ring got found in the bag of the person. It is confirmed by that investigation officer. Now, while doing the appreciation, see, first we have done the points for determination. Now, what we are going to do? We are going to do the appreciation of the evidences. Okay. Next slide. In next slide, we are going to talk about appreciation of prosecution evidences. Like appreciation, में अब court यहाँ पे क्या देख रहा है? The court must assess consistency of victim testimony. Victim testimony is same since day one. Credibility of recovery procedure, like the ring got found from the bag of that accused person. The reliability of investigation officer. Investigation officer also stated that while doing the investigation, he found the ring in the bag of the accused person's bag. Okay, so he found the ring in that particular bag. Okay, and then there was any absence of procedural irregularity or not. So this with these points we are done with the appreciation of prosecution evidences. While moving forward, next we are going to move forward with the appreciation of hostile witness. Okay, so hostile witness. See, the credibility of hostile witnesses are very low, right? We have studied this in beginning only. The court must analyze why the witness got hostile. Okay, what was the reason behind this? And when they find out the reason, so they will also determine that doubt becomes reasonable, because first he told that they found the ring, and later on he denied that particular fact. Okay, so hostile alone does not destroy the prosecution case. Then, while evaluating these defenses, evaluating the facts which are presented by the defendant, so the number one thing which we discussed, that salary dispute was there. Next slide. So while evaluating the defense theory, the first thing which we have to keep on our mind is the salary dispute was there, that it suggests a motive for false imprisonment. However, motive was unless supported by evidences. Defense has by defense being stated that there was salary dispute between the master and the servant. So master planned, this is the planned activity which master has done for alleging the accused, right? But it is very important that motive alone is not sufficient. Likewise, I said before that proving intention is very difficult without an act, right? So now we are going to apply the reasonable doubt test, whether the guilt of the accused is proved without the reasonable doubt or not. So the court must determine that the hostility present in this particular case has weakened the chain of proof or not. Okay, and if false implications are there which are which is having any particular reason or not. If the doubt is real and reasonable, then it will be acquittal. If the doubt is not real or reasonable, then the conviction will happen. Okay, next, see, what is the possible judicial findings while analyzing the facts, while doing the appreciation of the evidences, while evaluating the theory? Okay, now you have to find the possible outcomes. Possible outcomes means the possible judicial findings based on the reasoning, based on the legal reasoning. What are the possible outcomes? Okay, so conviction is justified when the recovery is credible, possession was there with the domestic helper, with the accused person, dishonest intention is there, and defense theory is improbable. It is very difficult to rely on that particular theory. When acquittal is required, acquittal, it is very important to prove that recovery was doubtful. Hence, theory we have to evaluate, and if reasonable doubt persists, then only acquittal is going to happen. Okay, reasonable doubt must be there. Defense have stated their fact very clearly. They are having evidences about this, and the recovery of that particular ring from the accused bag is doubtful. Okay, so now we are going to write the judgment. Okay, and we are going to understand what is the basic format of a judgment, what does a judgment includes, and in last we are going to write the judgment of this scenario. Okay, next slide. Structure of a judgment. What does a judgment includes? See, whenever you are writing a judgment, the number one thing which you have, the first thing which you have to write is the case name, case title, and case details. Like, let's take for example X versus Z case is there, so you have to write X versus Z. Okay, on the left side the state name will come, state versus accused. State means the victim person. In criminal law, victim is always represented by the state. I assume that this you have studied under the cases. Okay. Then you have to mention the FIR number. FIR number means the complaint number, which has been provided by the police officers, police station, which police station this FIR has been registered. You have to write the name of the court before which court this proceedings are going on, then the name of the presiding magistrate, the court officer's name, case number is there, and the date of the judgment. And in between you have to write the heading called judgment also, right? So first of all you're going to enter the case name, then FIR number, court details, case number. In between you're going to write judgment, the word judgment heading must be there. Then paragraph wise the judgment will start. Okay, so first the point for determination must be there. So in this particular problem, what was the point of determination, or what was the issue? That whether the accused was in the possession of stolen property or not. And second issue was there, accused has committed a theft as per section 303 of PNS or not. Right? Next is marshalling of evidence. Marshalling of evidence means the judgment should include that on what basis, what is the sequence of the evidences that has been stated by both the parties, by the defense as well and by the prosecution as well. Marshalling means the sequencing of the evidences, right? Third thing will be there, the appreciation of the evidences, like the credibility of witnesses, effect of hostile witness, evaluation of recovery evidence, assessment of defense theory or defense pleadings, and there should be the application of beyond reasonable doubt standards. Okay, this all should be stated in our judgment. First of all the evidences will be there, that is called marshalling. Then on what basis you are giving that particular judgment, what is the appreciation, which judgment is more, which evidence is more reliable, more trustworthiness. Okay, so you have to mention that particular point. Inserting section is not necessary. Okay, inserting sections necessary of BSA. You have to just write the facts based on the legal provisions only. If you are going to mention the, if you are mentioning the evidences, the name of the evidences, that is sufficient. Last will be final findings and reasons. Final findings, whether the position is proved, whether the dishonest intention was not there, or the reasonable doubt exists or not. Okay, then after this we are going to move forward with the closure. Okay, which means order, that what is the order given by the judge. Means, see, now in judgment, first of all we have mentioned the introduction. Introduction के बाद हमने क्या mention किया? points of determination, the issues of that particular case, then marshalling, appreciation, final findings, and now the comes the very important part, which is called operative order. Or here the person who's giving judgment will state this fact that whether this particular accused is convicted or not. If convicted, so on what basis, under which sections, and what will be the punishment or sentence that has been awarded to him, whether any bail bond is there or not, or any set off is there or not. Set off means set off usually comes under civil law. It doesn't come under criminal law. Let's take suppose two parties are having the dispute of recovery of money, right? So suppose A took 1 lakh 50,000 from B and B once took 40,000. So now court will decide that A needs to give only 1 lakh 10,000 because B already has taken 40,000 away. This is called set off. This happens under criminal law. If criminal law judgment is there, then offense determination is very important, whether the offense has been committed under this particular section or not. Second, what is the term of sentence that is the concepts which are provided under BNSS. Let's take, for example, if a judge is giving probation to a person, probation to accused, so he will mention that particular thing. If a judge is giving lesser punishment to a person on the basis of good behavior, so he will mention all those particular relevant things in a judgment. Okay, a judgment is complete only when findings are supported by a clear reasoning. Okay, let's take for example when we study BNSS. Under BNSS, we are studying admonition, right? The concept of admonition. Admonition means, let's take for example, any person is there who's a first time offender, and he did that particular act in very, I would say, in a situation where he cannot avoid that particular thing. He did that to under a particular pressure. So the court will award him a lesser sentence. A court can tell him to just to admonitate him and tell him that don't do this particular thing from next time onwards. Okay, so this all things to be clearly stated under operative order. Okay, next will be judicial reflection. Judicial reflection means it is not the duty of the court to secure the conviction. Okay, the duty of the court is not to secure the conviction but to ensure justice has been done. Okay, the main objective of judiciary or the person who's giving a judgment is very important, that a justice to be done with the parties. Okay, it is not necessary that accused, if a person is accused of any kind of charges, so you will get convicted only. If any bona fide or benefit is there, so it always be given to accused. And it is the duty of the court to make sure that justice has been done through this decision making, because this reflects the foundation of fairness. Okay, so the main points, or next slide please, the main points to be noted, which needs to be noted, that the
Sorry
doubt
to
must be
interrupt, ma'am.
given.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's one guy which has a doubt in the chat box. That person has written it.
Just give me, okay. How detailed evidence discussion be? Is the judgment written in first person? Okay, give me a minute, we'll discuss this. First of all, before you have to keep in your mind some points which are very necessary, that proving a doubt beyond proving a guilt beyond reasonable doubt governs by the criminal trial. This is one of the very important point which you need to keep in your mind. Second, hostile witnesses affect the weightage or credibility of that particular evidence to be get admissible. Recovery of evidence must withstand scrutiny, and then there should be some reasonable doubt to safeguard fairness. If reasonable doubt is existing, then the benefit should be given to the accused. Okay, and this should be done with while ensuring the justice. So now I'm answer the question like Indira asked, how detailed should evidence discussion be? Is the judgment written in first person? Okay. So dealing with this point, evidence It should be reasonable. It is not necessary that it should be in very detailed manner. It should be in a paragraph in a precise manner that this particular points has a relevant with this point. This is sufficient. Okay, Indra, I hope you got the answers your question. Are you clear with your question? Doubt? All right. Okay. So now we are moving forward. I would like now, if you have any doubt in this particular situation, we have studied all the points which are required for writing a good criminal judgment. What are the points in your mind? What are the things which are very important? What is the particular format of a criminal judgment? So if you have any doubt, you can ask. Any doubts so far on the session? Yes. If you, yeah, ma'am, can you mention books from which we can practice and learn judgment writing? See, I would suggest one book, Robin Jeet Singh book is there. In that book, you will get all the judgments because while I was preparing for my judicial examination, I also studied from that particular book only. It has all the types of judgments, everything, the concept, important concepts has been given in that. And also, you will get the state specific questions in that. And paper pattern and everything is provided in that. So Robin Jeet Singh book is very good book. While writing judgment for appeal, whether we want to discuss previous judgments, no, you don't have to discuss previous judgment, but you will mention that the this particular judgment has been given by the prior lower court. You have to mention that thing, and you're changing any other order, you're giving any other order, so you have to mention the reasoning in that. But first, it is important that this particular thing has been stated by the lower court in the following judgment. Any other doubt? Any other questions? All right, then I suppose. Okay. So, Chetan, I'm done from my side. All, yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much, ma'am. That was an absolutely brilliant masterclass. The way you broke down the principles of judgment writing, how to objectively marshal evidence, how to weigh a hostile witness, and how to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt was eye-opening. You have truly shown us what it takes to sit on a other side of the bench. On behalf of Nyayavani Foundation, Legalist IP, and all the attendees present today, I extend our deepest gratitude for sharing your time, your judiciary expertise, and your profound knowledge with us. Thank you so much, ma'am.
And thank you, Nyayavani, also for giving this opportunity to Legalist IP that we have here. We are here for discussing the criminal judgment session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So, interns, don't leave. I'll share with you the form link. Check the chat box. There is a link. Kindly fill that form for your certificates.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
My chat box isn't opening.
Um, You are joining with PC or phone?
Phone.
Try to join with laptop. Okay, so theory is over. It's time for your final assignment. Up until now, you have been advocates. You argued for the complainant. You argued for the accused. Today, you are acting as a judge. So the case, State versus Ramesh Kumar, the missing diamond ring case. The domestic worker is accused of stealing a diamond ring. The ring was recovered from his bag by the police. However, the independent seizure witness has turned hostile in court. The defense claims the worker was framed over unpaid salary. Your job is to draft a criminal judgment. You need to structure it exactly as ma'am taught you. Brief facts, points of determination, marshalling of evidence, reasoning, and finally your decision. You must decide whether to convict or acquit Ramesh Kumar. You must justify your legal reasoning under the BNS and BNSS along with the BSA. You have all the facts, all the story. Based on that, you have to determine whether the Ramesh will be convict or acquit. Okay. It is not that your judgment is to convict or acquit. It is mostly based upon your legal reasoning, and the task performance will be measured upon your legal reasoning only. Please listen carefully to the submission rule for this final task. Your draft must be a formal judgment document, which is PDF or Word format. You must email your draft directly to your respective team lead's official email ID. Do not submit it in the WhatsApp group or in personal DMs. Deadline is till Saturday at 11:59 p.m. This is your capstone project. Write it with the neutrality, logic, and authority of magistrate. Okay. Have you all filled the form?
Yes.
The form isn't opening.
Form isn't opening. I have
I
shared
am
the
not able to
link
open
again.
the chat.
I have shared the link again. Try to access this. Those who have filled the form may leave.
Currently, I am not able to join on PC. Is there any other way so I could fill the form?
Okay, so don't worry, we will share the form in the groups later, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you may leave.